Today we are proving triangles congruent, and my essential question is, how do I prove triangles congruent?
Vamos go to Ilse.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so I am given that M is the same length, MO is the same length as QR, right there. MN is the same as QP. NO is the same as PR. Huh? Pencil? And then it says angle N is congruent to angle P, and angle M is congruent to angle Q. So those are all labeled. So I am going to start off by writing all my givens. Use the one in the hallway.
Good morning, warriors.
Hallway.
Please rise for the pledge.
Okay, so I was going to write down my statements and my reasons. What was given to me? So, yes, we have to write all of them.
Teachers, please pardon this interruption. Teachers assigned to the 9:30 bus evacuation, please escort your students to your assigned site. Thank you.
Nope. Mm-hmm. We're the 10 o'clock one. Okay. What else was given to me? Three. Okay, what else is given? And that was given. Those were all my sides. What kind of angles were given to me? So I have angle N is congruent to angle P. That was given. What else was given to me? Okay, so what do I know about this picture? No, what do I know about this piece right here? Because I know those two triangles are congruent, right? Because all the sides are congruent. So I'm going to know that angle O is congruent to angle R, and this is by the third angle theorem. Okay, and then all I have to do is my therefore. Oh no, actually not my therefore. I'm just going to write the congruent triangles. So I go from 1, 2, 3 on my angles, so NMO is congruent to 1, 2, 3 on this one, so PQR. And this is by definition of congruent triangles. What? Angle O. Oh, right here, yeah? Yeah. The next one I want to do is going to use the reflexive property. And I use the reflexive property when I'm looking at the sides of a triangle. So I'm going to start off by writing my givens. I have NM is congruent to PO. That was given. I have MP is congruent to ON. That was given. Then I have MNP is congruent to OPN. And then I have measure of angle M is congruent to measure of angle O. That was given as well. So from the last one we did, I can get the third angle when I know two angles. So that's angle MPN is congruent to angle ONP by the third angle theorem. Okay. Then I'm just missing my third side. This side has to be congruent to itself because it is itself. So I'm going to say PN is congruent to NP, and this one is by the reflexive property. Okay. Then I'm just going to have my two congruent triangles, so I'm going to go 1, 2, 3 in my angles. So NMO is congruent to, what's the order of the other triangle? No, because I go in the order of the tick marks, so I go 1, 2, 3. This one has the 1. That's P. So PON. And this is definition of congruent triangles. Okay, the next one I want to do is going to use vertical angles. What am I doing? Okay, so I'm going to start off with my givens. They gave me UT was congruent to UW. Those ones are already marked for me. I have SU is congruent to VU. Then I have TS is congruent to WV. Oh, all three of these were given. Then I have my congruent angles they told me, T and W. Okay. Then I know that these two angles, TUS and VUW, are congruent because they're vertical angles. TUS. Yeah. So then, what do I know about angle S and angle V? I know two of my angles already in the triangle. So if two are congruent in the triangle, the third one has to be congruent. So I'm going to have angle S is congruent to angle V by the third angle theorem. Then I just need to say my congruent triangles. So what's my first triangle? I start with 1, 2, and then 3. So TUS, W, U, huh? Mm-hmm. And then this is definition of congruent triangles. Just 10 cents. Can I move on to the back? No? Okay. No, but they're going to be useful for tomorrow's assignment. Yesterday's was for a grade. So then on the back, I have this one. This one is going to be, there's two things we're learning in this one. There is midpoint and bisect. So when it says midpoint, this is going to be useful for my sides.
Teachers, please excuse this interruption. Teachers assigned to the 940 bus evacuation, please support your students to your assigned site. Thank you.
When it says bisect, that's going to be important for proving my angles are congruent. Okay, so I'm going to start off writing what they gave me. MP is congruent to NP. Those are labeled. Angle M is congruent to angle N, not marked. Angle MOP is congruent to angle NOP. MOP. O is the midpoint of MN. Okay. So then since O is the midpoint of this whole line, that means that these two pieces are going to be congruent because it's cutting them in half. So MO is congruent to ON by definition of a midpoint. Okay, so since I have two congruent angles, I know that the third one has to be congruent. So angle MPO is congruent to angle NPO by the third angle theorem. I ran out of room. Okay. I haven't labeled this triangle. This line. I know it's going to be congruent. Why? Why is OP congruent to PO? Yeah, what's the word for when they're the same? We just used it. Look at the other side. Reflexive. Okay, and then I can say my two triangles are congruent. Okay, so the next one we're going to use parallel lines, and more specifically the corresponding angles theorem. Okay. So it starts off by telling me HG is congruent to JI. Oh, just kidding, IJ. Then it tells me GI is congruent to JK. Julian, be quiet. Then it says angle G is congruent to angle J. It tells me GH is parallel to JI. So that's what these triangles mean, parallel. And then it says JI bisects HK. bisects. I cannot speak even. Bisects means cuts in half. So if JI is cutting this in half, it means that these two sides are going to be congruent. So HI is congruent to IK by definition of bisect. Okay. Then, since I know these two are parallel lines, I know that these two are going to be congruent because they're corresponding angles. So angle H is congruent to angle, this one has to be named with 3 letters because there's 2 angle I's. Angle JIK. Then, since I know 2 of my angles in both triangles, the third one has to be congruent by the third angle theorem. So that's angle GIH is congruent to JKI. And then since I have all 3 sides and all 3 angles labeled, I know my 2 triangles are going to be congruent. Then the last one we're going to work with is parallelograms. I mean, just kidding, quadrilaterals, which include parallelograms. Quadrilateral.
Teachers, please pardon this interruption. Teachers assigned to the 950 bus evacuation, please escort your students to your assigned site. Thank you.
So then I want to start off with what I was given. It starts off by telling me IGJ is congruent to HGJ. HJG. These are really hard to say together. Then it tells me GH is parallel to JI. Red. And then it also tells me GHJI is a parallelogram. So what kinds of things do I know about this picture that I haven't already said? I know that HGJ and IJG are congruent. HGJ and IJG. I spelled given wrong too. These ones are congruent by alternate interior angles. Okay, so then what do I know? I is congruent to H. Why? Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay, what else do I know from this picture? It's a parallelogram. So in order to be a parallelogram, it means the sides have to be the same length that are opposite each other. So I have IG is congruent to JH by definition of parallelogram. And then I'm also going to have GH and IJ. Yeah, but I'm missing my third side. So how is the third side congruent? No, there's one parallelogram, but there's two definitions of it. So how do I know this side right here in the middle is congruent? GJ and JG. How are those two sides congruent? Not corresponding. This one. How do I know it's congruent to itself? Yeah. Okay, so now that I have all my angles and sides labeled, I can say the triangle statement. So I have triangle GJI is congruent to triangle JGH, and this is by definition of congruent triangles. Reflexive with an X. Zoom in. Is that any better? Okay. Okay, then I know angle